Welcome to the Procrastinarium. My name is Jan, and today we are continuing our Let's Play as Japan. Now, what's happening is the game is going to slightly play itself in the background. Not because I'm not playing it. I did play it earlier today, forgot to record audio for it. Therefore, I'm doing this now. So the point was, at the beginning of the game, I was talking about what we should colonize next, and we've discovered that since we have the mission to colonize Manchuria, or rather, establish a foothold in Manchuria, we should colonize a northern part of it. And that's kind of what we did. We colonized the northern part of Manchuria. It's called Deren, I think, if I remember correctly, and it was colonized throughout the episode. I think it actually came to full fruition in the episode. I did kind of start focusing on helping out our vassal, just to improve relations, take care of the rebels, because that does improve relations with your vassals, no matter how you turn it. And we did work a little bit, I think, on working our navy. I'm not entirely sure anymore. I did keep constantly throughout the episode, and you'll notice I kept checking if Japan has any or Korea has any allies rather. And they don't, neither do the Ming, which I found incredibly fascinating, and I continued checking just in case to make sure that nothing is missed. Oh yes, and a gold rush happened somewhere, because we are producing gold, which we'll notice later is not that good for our nation in particular, simply because, well, a lot of inflation happens because we produce gold. But because of all that money, we were able to upgrade a few of our buildings. Actually, quite a few of our buildings, and I was kind of looking at what would be a good idea, and if we could build anything in the Nanjing node or Beijing trade node. I can't remember which one it is. I think it's Beijing. Right up until the point where I realized, oh right, I don't have actually any provinces in that. Eventually decided to turn to more money generation in the form of constables and temples. Turns out Japan isn't that profitable at all, no matter how you turn it. The most profitable being Kyoto, followed by, well, the two provinces I selected. I can't really remember which they were. And while I'm recording this, while I am watching the video, I'm not watching the video in a kind of a full screen environment, so I don't really see how it's going on. It's slightly how do I put this? It's slightly on a corner of my screen, not full screen, because I couldn't figure out how to do that actually. I am, of course, editing in Premiere Pro, which means that I have the video in a corner of the screen while I have the audio tracks and the audio mixer and all the input files and everything else laid out on the screen so I can edit easily, which I do quite a lot. I mean, I of course have to edit everything. I decided at this point in the game that since the Kurils were so far ahead, had over 900 inhabitants, that we could pull back our colonist and send him to Deren to colonize that and still make a profit out of it, because we were making quite a bit of profit. As you'll notice, the Deren doesn't actually have any modifiers for colonization, so we can colonize normally. I was starting to take a look around for allies as well, especially against the Ming, since we will border them, and the Oryat Horde in a minute. And Tibet seemed like a good idea, but Tibet, as we've seen in other games, or as you've probably seen in other Let's Plays, Tibet isn't really that good of a nation to be allied to. I mean, they're not really useful when it comes to having an ally. Their armies are usually quite weak. Well, their ideas are incredibly strong, their national ideas. They start out quite poorly, with quite a low amount of troops, and they're not really that useful as an ally. So maybe improving relations with the Ming wasn't the best idea, but considering how big Ming and the Oryat Horde are, we needed, or I thought that we need allies. It is a quick look at the coalition map mode, and as you guys have saw, Korea is the only member of the coalition, and the only one that actually hates us more than anything else. So it didn't really matter. I did take a stupid mission to incorporate Manchu into our country instead of conquer Korea, but as you'll notice a bit later, or actually about now sometime, I should be starting war preparations. I don't know what sorry, I'm yawning, it's slightly late. You'll notice that I start war preparations for invading Korea again, because invading Korea seems like a good idea. They're the only easy target we have left, I guess. And war with them was inevitable. But I'm just hoping that after this episode, after I start recording the next episode, that the war with Korea doesn't bring the Orient Horde and the Ming on my doorstep. It shouldn't, because I don't have a border with either of them just yet, but we do start annexing Manchu in a few minutes. I'm yawning like crazy. I am really sorry. It's finding hard to contain myself. And I shouldn't be recording this afterwards anyways, but as I said, I was being an idiot. I think at this point here I was trying to figure out what the Russian city that is in that area is, and it's Vladivostok, and figuring out that the border of how Korea is in this game is proper, and yeah, the border between North and South Korea is where I was just pointing. The large part of Manchu is also controlled by China, so that's what I was figuring out, because I couldn't quite remember what the Russian city was, and then I got really intrigued into it and decided to pull up a map and actually look, and it turns out it's Vladivostok, and I knew it was something, but I couldn't quite remember. For some reason Petrograd was in my mind, but I couldn't quite figure out. Here we see the war preparations with Korea. Our truce with Korea actually expires quite shortly in this video. I mean quite quickly in this video. And war with Korea is inevitable. I mean, there really is no way we could avoid that war. Yawned again. I'm really bad at this, aren't I? Really unprofessional. But war with Korea was inevitable. And I mean, if we look at it, Korea, they apparently seem to like war. They have currently been at war for what, 50 years or so? I believe it's about 50 years that the Koreas have been at war. Was it, yeah, from the 60s? I think they went to war in the 60s, and they are still at war. Technically, there isn't even a border in between them. I was picking out new advisors as well, trying to see, and I saw one that has a settler increase chance, but he was way too expensive for our economy. And we couldn't get him because he was a level 2 or a level 3, I believe. But it just, we don't really need him, I guess. Naval supplies will be produced in the depot. I was trying to figure out what naval supplies actually do, and I can't remember, but I believe that controlling the naval supply, all naval supply trade, or rather controlling naval supply trade, increases something to do with your navy, some navy morale, maybe shipbuilding costs, something like that. And I was trying to figure out if individual provinces do that as well, but I don't think so. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think they give you any bonuses. Yes. I was starting to integrate them, or integrate Manchu. That's why I pulled back the guy from Tibet. Integrate Manchu into our nation, rather annex them. It will take a long time to annex them, simply because they're too big, and we're quite small. We don't have that good diplomatic relations. More building projects. Trying to improve our production efficiency in the Cantonese trade node? I can't remember, but Taiwan is in a third trade node. We are already in 2 trade nodes, and we're gonna be in 3 once we take out Manchu, or rather annex Manchu and take out Korea. Which is really weird, but we might consider at some point actually moving our capital out of Japan and forwarding trade from Nippon into another node where we will collect trade, a node where our capital will be in, maybe down in Taiwan, or maybe even, if we get that far, even in what was it called? Was it Franco-China? Indochina? French Indochina, that's what it was, in French Indochina, which is the area of Vietnam and that kind of, where the Champa are in the game, and Dai Viet, and Ayutthaya, and Pegu. In that kind of area, the Malacca trade node is usually quite good. We'll see, maybe a Beijing trade node. The problem with controlling Manchu though is the further north we are, the likelihood of us bordering Russia is increased, because as you know from the other Let's Play, from the Prussia Let's Play, and other Let's Plays of other YouTubers that you watch or played on your own, you know that Russia expands east quite quickly, through colonization mostly, but once they do, they will start to attack us, and we are in the Chinese technology group, which means that we are going to be far behind in technology. It's going to be good for when we start westernizing. It's going to be fantastic when we do that, but it won't be too fantastic when we you know, encounter other nations, especially if we encounter the Eastern nations or the Muslim nations first, because we won't be able to westernize unless we meet a Western nation. The Philippines, yes, I decided the Philippines would be a good way to expand our nation. That's Guam, the Yap Islands and the Palau Islands, and then I went to talk that island is actually called Palawan. I think it's that island that's called Palawan. I think so. And for those of you that don't know, Palawan is the home planet of the Turians, I believe, in Mass Effect. And I found it really interesting when the game originally came out and I started playing EU4, that I noticed that island and I was really excited about it, and then checked if there were any other connections between the Mass Effect universe and actual Earth geography. There are. I mean, in Mass Effect you go to the moon, and you are on Earth in the third one, and so on and so forth. But I didn't really notice anything else. I mean, there might be other things that I didn't notice because they're smaller on the map and they're not really well represented in the map on EU4. But I found those things really interesting. I always find weird connections really interesting, especially if I don't know about them. And I like to research things, which is strange, but I do. I really get into some topics, and I research them to the core, and I know everything about them that I can. Usually they're not really material to talk about in a Let's Play, but sometimes they are. Again, checking that Korea still has no allies, and they're the only ones in a coalition against us, which they are, and they continue to be so for a long, long while. So we were gonna work on. Originally, we were gonna take control over the south part of Korea, the southernmost provinces, and one kind of in the middle, because we couldn't get a claim on the complete northern one on Hamgyong, I think it is. Hamgyong, something like that. But we were continuing to fabricate claims, and eventually we got 3 claims on them. Or we will get 3 claims on them, and we will declare war. The war actually isn't that long. I thought it was going to be a much longer war when I originally planned it out. I was going to be it's going to be this war. It's going to spill probably into the next episode because I started it so late in the episode. Turns out it didn't, simply because it was just Korea. It was no one else, and our men were actually really good. We also got a technology upgrade, and it should happen any minute now, because I believe it was just as I was deploying naval forces around the islands, if I'm not mistaken. Because I decided, because it's just Korea doesn't have much of a navy, so it was in my eyes a good idea to blockade them. See, we get new technology, we got our first cannons, which I took advantage of since we had so much money. I wanted to build them directly there, figured I couldn't, because I don't actually control the area. When I was checking the armies, I also noticed that 5,000 cannons per army was fine, so I built 10,000 cannons on the island of Japan, or rather in our hometown. And built 10,000 cannons, waited for those to be built, and then transported them over and attacked with those, because I figured that it would be much easier to to siege and defeat to siege their provinces and defeat their army with cannons, because I was sure that they didn't have them yet. And I'm not sure if they did or not, but I mean, it was a piece of cake, more or less. The only thing it did cause us a deficit Even though we had 7 income, it caused us a deficit because we were so much overextended. Also, we have huge inflation. I couldn't quite figure out why. Then I remembered we have a gold mine, so we might have to get the economic ideas to get that inflation going down at all times. It's inflation isn't a good thing. It's never a good thing. It isn't a good thing in real life. It isn't a good thing in the game. It causes a bunch of issues. Loans also aren't a good thing, which I think we took out 1 loan during the war. Loans aren't a good thing then, they aren't a good thing now. In my country where I actually live, it's not horrible, but it's getting slightly bad because we've had so much, we've had to borrow so much money, the country had to borrow so much money that the debt is quite high. It's not as bad as the United States one, which is I think at 13 trillion or something at this point, which is a huge, gigantic loan, and I had no understanding of how they work. We got an event, don't remember what it was. Don't remember at all, and I couldn't quite see when I was reading. I hope you guys got it, but I think it was something about something or other. It wasn't too good, but oh well. I was here looking at the armed forces as well, noticed that one of the armies doesn't actually have any horses, transported those over, and I think I took out 5,000 men in the other army just to keep us in a positive balance, so that we have 2 armies of 10,000 infantry, 4,000 cavalry, and 5,000 cannons, which was a really good idea. It's a nice composition, and the war has started. I see the game skipped actually a little bit, or the recording skipped actually a little bit. You didn't miss much in the recording. I edited a bit out, a bit too much apparently. It didn't happen, much didn't happen. We just declared war, went south, detached sieges as I went further south, ended up covering their nation. Actually within a minute or 2 of starting the war, and it wasn't really bad, and then we just blanket sieged. Because they're so small and they didn't have anyone else. I was here discussing with myself that maybe we should go into the Philippines instead, because Nepal or Darren became self-sustaining, but decided that I'm gonna colonize that one piece, and then we might go into the Philippines as a last resort, because the Philippines and the rest of the islands are gonna be harder for the Russians to attack and the Ming to attack than anything else on the mainland that we have, or yeah, on mainland Asia basically. The episode was pulled long. It would usually run for about 2 minutes, but it lasted about 5 minutes more. Our morale of armies is higher by 10% because we're Shinto, which I found really interesting, and I didn't know that because I didn't really check out the Shinto religion when we started out. But I was checking that, and it actually is incredibly decent. Yeah, Japan says now in big letters up top. It's gonna say it in even bigger letters once we get Manchu, but it is a lovely prospect. And then it was just waiting for things to happen. One of our advisors died. We couldn't really get a good one. I didn't want to get a good one. It was we were getting income. If we got a diplomatic reputation one or a better diplomatic relations over time one, that would be fantastic. I don't think we do, so that's kind of bad. But quickly redeploying some troops to help out our Manchu vassals' troops siege, because they don't have any cannons yet, because of course they're a nomad tech group, so they're even worse off than we are. I think our technology costs 60% more than normal, so I think it costs 160% for technologies, while the nomads cost even more, something like 200 or 180, something stupid like that. But basically, as you see, we carpet sieged Korea incredibly quickly, because we had a lot of troops on the ground to siege them with, and they were on their own, so they didn't have any allies. There was no need for me to worry about anyone else. The peace treaty was actually quite interesting, because I was looking at the peace treaty and they were still too big to vassalize, which I then decided, okay, we're going to do it in the next war. I started looking at taking only 3 provinces and was kind of, maybe I can take 4. What would the Ming think? Because Ming were the important thing. The Oryat Horde, if they're alone against us, we should be fine. They're a nomad tech group, we're ahead, we have more troops. I think we have more troops than the Oryat Horde, or rather we have more powerful troops, and we should be good. I tried taking Pyongyang, And we could take all of those provinces more or less, but I couldn't find a good way to do it. And Pyongyang would give us an immediate border with the Ming, which I didn't like. I ended opting for taking the provinces of Hangyong, Gangyong, Yuela, and can't remember what the last one was. I can't remember what it is. But taking these 4 provinces, because I could core them as well. They are connected to our lands. I could core them. Turns out it wasn't actually that bad of an idea. I like these 4 provinces. I didn't want the southern 3 provinces and then not have any access to them. Plus, I also wasn't sure if leaving 5 provinces to Korea was going to work. In vassalizing them in the next war, which is gonna happen probably in the next episode, depends how quickly our truce is over, but I want to go to war with them again and vassalize them again, or rather vassalize them as quickly as possible. I was quickly taking a look at the Ming. The Ming don't really like us now anymore. I mean, they never properly they rivaled us quite early on, and for some reason consider us a rival, even though they're so much more powerful than we are. When it comes to navy and army, I left my army in mainland Asia. Our island is more or less in this. Well, it's siegeable. They could siege it. I agree. It would be bad if they did, but I think that if we have troops on the mainland, we can attack their mainland, which would stop them from sieging or trying to invade us with their naval power. But I'm gonna now end the episode here. I think the video goes for another minute or so, but I'm gonna end the episode here. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. If you did, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Don't forget to share it with your friends. I will do proper commentary next time while I record because it's so much easier. And yeah, I'm just gonna say bye bye now, and you'll see how the rest of the video goes. So until next time, bye bye.